How's it going, Kittanning? We are back for another episode of the Greatest City in the World podcast. I'm here with my good friend Mike Rizzo. We are continuing our conversation from last time. If you guys missed the last podcast, make sure to check that out. We've been going through, Mike's been going through and researching all of these lists throughout the United States about the top small towns in America. And so we're trying to glean some information, figure out, how can we get on one of these lists, and what are these other towns doing right that kind of just sets them apart from everybody else. So tell us what you're thinking this week, Mike.
Yeah, so this is really interesting doing the research, and the research really shows us the path of what these towns have done, because there are very similar commonalities across these towns on this list and the coming up list and the list we talked about last week. So there seems to be a game plan to be considered one of the top towns in America.
Yeah.
This list we're talking about this week is from the Smithsonian. They put out a publication, and they have a website as well, and of course their massive museum. This list is called the 15 Best Small Towns to Visit in America. It is the only list that has the word visit in here.
Okay.
And I think that the word visit actually leads to a few nuances in this list.
Okay.
And it helps some of these towns get on the list.
Yeah.
It's compiled by a lady named Laura Kinney, who I actually got to converse with via email, and she gave me some
amazing.
She gave me some really, so all these lists, I'm actually reaching out to the artist, or the artist. I'm reaching out to the author, and asking them for tips, saying, hey, I'm from Kittanning, Pennsylvania. We're trying to eventually make these lists before 300th birthday in 2027. What advice would you give our town? What things did you rate most important?
Right.
So I am reaching out to everybody, and in a lot of these towns, I'm also looking at their chambers of commerce, their town websites, their nonprofits, and understanding kind of what they're doing, and if there's some insights we can gain from that as well.
Right.
So I'm actually doing, I guess, what you would consider true research into all of these towns. It's going to be about 90 or so when we're all done, and really finding out what sets them apart.
Right.
And see what we can learn.
I think maybe we need our own master list when we're done. Just like
what?
Or you already?
Yeah, no. I think the plan is when we're done, right? We'll create a kind of a PDF, PowerPoint, or something that's multiple pages that has the master list.
Yeah.
I have the template of the matrix where we're going through, and if it's an arts or local or food and marking them off, so there'll actually be a grid, a spreadsheet grid, and then of course I wanted to do something that ties the themes together, and we thought we could pass this out to other towns and then share locally. But I do want to put together kind of a nice finished.
I'm obsessed with having the data and the hard stuff behind it, so I'm so glad you're doing that.
So
very cool.
I'm definitely compiling the data, and there's different ways to look at it. So I'm super excited about this.
Yeah. So what'd you learn about Smithsonian? We're going to kind of go through some highlights on here, and then obviously whatever you learned from the author, that would be very, very helpful.
Yeah, so I don't know if we want to get into the author's comments first or the towns first. I figured I'd go through some of these towns fairly quickly, and then there's a few towns I think that are interesting that I wanted to call out.
Yep, for sure.
And I think there's a good question at the end of this one, too, for, is this something we could do in Kittanning type of question.
Yep.
So, we'll go through the list. The first one is Stockbridge, Massachusetts. It is home to believe it or not, as we talked about last week, these arts is basically the driver of a lot of these lists. It's a historic, quaint town, really historic architecture near Boston, but it's actually home to the Norman Rockwell Museum.
Oh, okay.
So they've embraced kind of Norman Rockwell and have a lot of things around him.
Yep.
The other town is Williams, Arizona. With another big trend, of course, young people and even companies are moving to places in the West, particularly in the mountains. Williams is a really beautiful scenery. It's a kind of a gateway town to the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
So they have the whole outdoors themes. They've also done a really good job of revitalizing downtown. It's a town of 3,200. They have some arts and art galleries there as well. But I think they're built based on their location and their proximity kind of to the outdoors. Mm-hmm. The next town is one I've never heard of. It's Mckean, Connecticut. It has 20,000 people. And there was an art museum, an art school set up there in the 50s, and that has thrived, and they built off of that local food. It's one of the big things on this list. This town was a bunch of local food places.
Yeah.
But really a town that I've never heard of, a decent-sized town, middle of Connecticut, which is not known for their outdoors or scenery.
Right, yeah.
Right? That they really embraced some high-end restaurants because, if you look at Hartford and Providence and even upstate, greater New York metro, they can attract people in.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it comes to the fourth town on the list, which is Le Mars, Iowa, 10,000 people, and it is a niche town.
Okay.
And the reason I say it's a niche town is because it has deemed itself ice cream capital of the world.
Oh, nice.
But it's home to Blue Bunny, which is, I don't know if you ever had Blue Bunny ice cream sandwiches or whatnot. Actually, our girls just eat them.
Yeah.
But they have built a whole thing around ice cream. But the company, Blue Bunny, has been instrumental in this, right?
Yeah.
Ice cream festivals, and there's a shop there and whatnot. So they've made it. They've embraced it.
So here we have that public-private partnership idea again.
Yeah, I would say this is purely driven privately in this case.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking a massive company, one of the bigger ice cream makers in the country.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Iowa, the farms, they bring the fresh ice cream, and they've dubbed themselves ice cream capital of the world, and it has really changed the complexion of the town. Avalon, California is the next one on the list. It's an island town right off the coast of California. It's going to be tough. That's a town that's kind of there because of its amenities. Obviously, it's a more upscale place to live and really well kept. All these towns, as we said last week, are extremely well kept, very low vacancies, and really nice main streets.
Yep.
The next town is Medina, North Dakota. It has 132 people. It's the smallest town we've come across yet.
Yeah.
It's small. But it's kind of the gateway to the Badlands.
Yep.
They have an outdoor theater. They have a lot of museums around the Old West.
Yep.
Cowboy type centric things, and they bring a lot of people into the summer, and it has kind of revitalized this little town and made it a stop for people who go to visit the Badlands.
I just can't believe a town of 132 people is getting, national exposure. That has to be, for us it would be huge. Just at 4,000 people. But
Right.
Can't even imagine you're 132.
They have a big theater. Now, if you look up this town, there's pictures
Yeah.
of this huge theater that they have, and I'm assuming that it seats 1,500 or so people that they do different things at, right? And even though the town is really small, I bet you in the summer, based on hotels and people coming in, the population of the town actually would swell up.
Yeah.
But according to the last census, it only had 132 permanent residents.
Sure.
But I think if you'd head there today, you'd see the streets would be quite busy.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Next town is Bethel, New York. I don't know if you know this, Andrew, but that's where the original Woodstock was.
Okay.
But they've kind of revitalized themselves, right? And people want to go to see that. Mm-hmm. So they have a draw, and they have done a lot of art galleries and whatnot, and kind of made the town very tourist-friendly because they have the pull of bringing people in from Woodstock. Or to see where Woodstock originally was.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of upstate New York. If they got their niche and they're exploiting it quite well. But I don't think that always was the case with Bethel. I think over the last 20 years they've really looked to capitalize kind of on the tourism that they could pull from.
Yeah, and I've seen Woodstock, New York on different lists, and that kind of full draw, and so these guys they're not the Woodstock that everybody thinks of, but just kind of the original.
I'm sure people are an expert on this. Maybe some of your audience actually went, but
yeah,
I don't know. All I know is that this town and its main draw is that it is near where the original Woodstock was.
Yeah.
And they have built a nice town around it to accommodate the tourists, and now it's become one of the nicest towns in America.
Very cool.
So the next town on the list is, and I'm horrible with pronunciation, so I'm probably gonna butcher this one. It's Wakapotena, Ohio.
Okay.
It is the birthplace of Neil Armstrong.
Okay.
And this is another town that I thought was more of a niche thing. They have capitalized on this, where they've done different arts themes around Neil Armstrong, different places around astronauts.
Yep.
It's a town of 9,000 people. Again, very clean town. Everyone says, well, this is like quintessential America when you visit this town, right?
Okay.
They've done the old Main Street, and they have this draw now that it was with Neil Armstrong, the first guy to walk on the moon, and they've kind of combined these two things together and make this really nice town that people want to live and visit.
Very cool. Sorry, I'm just making notes so I don't forget. Okay.
So the next town is the biggest town on this list. This list actually had a defining cap of 25,000 people as the cap to be on this list. It's called Rock Springs, Wyoming. Mm-hmm. It was an old coal town, right? That was hit hard. It really got started with the Transcontinental Railroad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were producing a lot of coal, and a lot of people, they were trying to go through the mountains, and obviously. So, long story short, it was a town that was in its heyday, like Kittanning. One point, people forget that 120 years ago, Kittanning was one of the wealthiest towns in America.
Right.
Right. And was a booming, growing town. Right.
Yeah, almost had 10,000 people at one point
right.
as well. Yeah.
Right. And wealth and artists and paintings and I have a side story about some paintings in Kittanning.
Yeah.
But valuable paintings of Kittanning that were done because these families who were wealthy at one point brought their own artists to do different things and whatnot.
Yeah.
But Rock Springs is somewhat similar to this. Is that it had a downturn kind of, and now it has built itself completely back up. So they actually do have some coal theme. They have a coal theme museum there. But Rock Springs was one of the towns that actually did do some public-private partnerships. They completely revitalized their downtown. According to their business website, they revitalized 260 buildings in downtown Rock Springs.
Wow.
And now with the draw of the mountains and whatnot, and it's become a really good point for people to go do different things in the Rockies, people on their way to Yellowstone, people wanting to see this town. It has become kind of a central hub in Wyoming, one of the bigger towns in Wyoming. But what I took away from it is how they completely revitalized their downtown.
Yeah.
Just a tremendous number of buildings. 260, that's way more than what we have in Kittanning.
Oh, my, yeah.
I do want to dive in a little bit deeper on how they did this. They won a National Main Street Award.
Okay.
They're one of only 3 towns a year. So another thing we can follow up on. There's a nonprofit group that gives out 3 Main Street Awards a year. Mm-hmm. Right, Rock Springs, because of this complete revitalization that they were able to do, they won one of these awards. The interesting thing about Rock Springs is for whatever reason, they didn't tear down a lot of their old buildings. Yeah. In Kittanning, we ruined some beautiful buildings in this town or leveled them.
Yeah.
For some reason, the facades were there, mm-hmm. and they revitalized them. But they won national recognition for having one of the best main streets in America.
Wow.
But all this was done, again, town that was in depression, and it kind of spun out of it.
So do we know if they lost a lot of population like Kittanning did when it went down, or do we know, or not really?
I don't know, and it's something
Okay.
I want to... Rock Springs, Wyoming is a town I want to dive in a little bit more.
Yeah.
My assumption is yes, that they did.
Yeah.
And now it's certainly back in the upswing. Most of the West Coast towns are seeing population kind of upticks, and I guarantee Rock Springs is as well, especially with the efforts they've done.
Yeah, because I always thought, with Kittanning, it was, I think, I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like 8,700 people was kind of the peak of Kittanning. And now we're, creeping down around 4,000. So I always thought it makes sense that we'd have to tear down half the buildings if you only had half the people.
Yeah.
But if you're planning for the future and you're thinking, well, we can grow again, or if you're going to have a tourist, artist-centric economy,
yeah, then
it really makes sense to have kind of this overflow capacity for those off seasons, like the North Dakota town.
Sure.
I'm sure they have way more than 132 beds.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
the town, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kittanning, there's really no beds.
Right. Yeah. No extra beds. Yeah. It's just like we're just continuing to downsize and kind of like, I don't know, lower the bar, so to speak, to wherever we are. And I think we have to change that mindset as well.
Yeah. We've got to flip it to growth mindset.
Right.
So do you want to pause here and we can talk about actually what I heard about how to get on the list from the author?
Absolutely, yeah. I really want to hear that, because if there's something that we can glean there and focus on as a city or as individuals, then we need to do that.
So the couple big points that she told me, particular to this list, right?
Yeah.
But I have a strong suspicion, working in marketing and PR for a long time, this is pretty much how it goes, going down. She didn't come up with the list. So the author didn't come up with the list. Her editors came up with the list. So the editors of the Smithsonian came up with this list. And how they came up with the list has been essentially through towns reaching out to them and pitching them. So her advice, and I always say we do no marketing and promotion in Kittanning.
Yeah.
Right? And I always compare this to pitching, and people don't understand, the city of Pittsburgh, right, has... by my estimations, 1,000 people in kind of these nonprofit groups like the Allegheny Conference, the Downtown Partnerships, and all these spinoffs promoting Pittsburgh or attracting businesses. When Pittsburgh did the Amazon pitch, it wasn't Bill Peduto and Rich Fitzgerald who had anything to do with that, really, other than they make public comments on it.
Yeah.
That was driven through private money from the Allegheny Conference, which I think was about $4 or $5 million to actually put together the Amazon bid. But the thing that we don't have in Kittanning is we don't have these strong groups of people, right, trying to tie things together, trying to bring people together, real movers and shakers too in a lot of these cases.
Yeah.
Well connected, and they're all working together. And we have a tremendous disadvantage in that. Now these towns, what has been commonality in these towns is you can Google all these towns, and you will find a very strong, I would consider it, Chamber of Commerce website. And you'll see their town website.
Yeah.
But they all have separate websites. And the separate websites are like marketing agency done, right? Built. They have where to stay, where to dine, where to shop, what's unique, what's local, museums, art, and it's like, if you go to like visit Myrtle Beach or some touristy site, right?
Yep.
These sites are built for showcasing local businesses and showcasing the town.
Right.
And most of them are extremely well done.
Yeah.
But the people who are running these sites are also pitching stories.
Yeah.
So they're pitching stories to their local, the nearest metropolitan area, right? Mm-hmm. Like we could pitch to Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo, Philadelphia.
Right.
And then they're pitching stories to the editors of Smithsonian to say, okay, here's our town. Can you showcase it in some form or fashion or do a story?
Yep.
So the editors are getting hit by these essentially nonprofit groups in these towns that are actually pitching the story. The other thing she said to do was make sure you have a well-documented list of what makes your town different, including a list of events. As we know, we have a ton of events in the park and just different things going on, festivals, and we have a great array of churches that do a variety of events. But I don't think there's an actual list of how many events are actually hosted in Kittanning.
Yeah.
But in her recommendation was send a list of events, send a list of unique things you have, send a list of museums or architecture significant buildings.
Yeah.
In a pitch. And that is the key to get on this list.
Mm-hmm. I think about things like the Folk Festival. I don't know, there's Fort Ligonier days where they kind of do that throwback to kind of the original founding of the town. But the Folk Festival, I think, is really unique to our area as far as like having a theme around a festival event. Most of the other towns are just kind of like throw a carnival or whatever it might be. But those kinds of things. What other things come up to you when you think of like Kittanning that says, hey, this sets us apart at this moment in time? Well, I say that maybe there's not any.
Well, no. I think we do. Well, I think we don't do any PR, right?
Well, right. Yeah, that's the
so
problem.
I think we have I think if you look at Kittanning town of 4,000 people, I bet you we bring in hundreds of thousands over the course of the summer through Arts in the Allegheny, right? Through things like the Wine Walk, through the Folk Festival, through, this church down the street had a Strawberry Festival, right? And there's little things going on all through town that are bringing people in.
Yeah.
And that's a positive right now, right? So I think that's something we could pitch. I think you could pitch the river.
Yeah.
The trail, I think, needs some significant work, but it's certainly something you could pitch.
Yeah.
Right? You have the Armstrong County Historical Museum here, something you could pitch, things we could work on. And then different things we could pitch about the history of the town, that it's a county seat. I think you could put together a pretty good one-sheeter of highlights of Kittanning. No, we know it's not perfect right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's certainly angles. We have restaurants now too. I mean, we have a per capita a great amount of restaurants in a variety of different foods, right? Should be pitched. But if you look at the 3 or 4 big food blogs in Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh Magazine, they have never covered any of these.
Right.
Why? Probably because no one has pitched them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if they knew about Meredith and Amano and these different nice restaurants that are coming into right on Water Street. I mean, right on the river.
Sure.
I mean, I would think they would be all over that.
Yeah.
Just to come and try it.
Yeah,
at the very least.
I think I've said that this is I think in the wheelhouse for downtown Kittanning or a similar type organization.
Yeah.
To actually pull this stuff together, pull the list together, and do some of this pitching, right? I mean, a lot of this cases, the pitching doesn't take much. It's you kind of have a standard template, right? If we want to pitch a food blog on food, right, we could say Kittanning has, 19 restaurants now.
Yeah.
It's an hour north of Pittsburgh. These are the type of restaurants we have. These are some of the ones that are more notable, right? Would you be interested in coming up and doing a story?
And really, we just have our own website, write those articles, so to speak, on our website, and then you already have your template pre-built.
Right, exactly. And all these towns have. So if you go to whatever town, Stockbridge, Massachusetts, if you go to their site, you're going to see where to buy stuff, where to eat, right? And it's going to have a nice little write-up about the restaurant.
Yeah.
And that gets the restaurant. What we have in Kittanning is we have a lot of kind of pockets, but we don't have a lot of people working in one direction, trying. But in this case, there's a huge incentive for the restaurants to actually provide a little content, be on board, help these groups, right? Because they're getting promoted.
Yep.
And the groups their whole focus is essentially to bring people into town. Yeah. And that benefits the restaurants for sure.
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody last week, and she was telling me, from a young family standpoint, that when you come to Kittanning, you don't really know what to do. There's nowhere to go that would just tell you,
sure,
what do we do now, or how can I get more connected, or where's the young moms group, or what's the best things to do with my kids. And so we were just literally just talking about this last week, right after you and I talked, and we're talking about maybe what would it look like if we did a top 20 things to do after you move to Kittanning, or your top 10 things to do when you visit Kittanning, and just highlight some of these restaurants, highlight the different programs at the library, just highlight all the different things that would make you want to be here.
Sure. And a lot of these town sites actually have the top things to do, top attractions, and they also have some things like how to buy a house there.
Yeah, or why to buy a house there.
Right.
I think we really have to sell those kinds of things of our why, because if we really believe that we're a city on the turnaround, then we can start acting like it.
Absolutely. So I think this is a huge uncovering.
Yeah.
Still have 6 more towns to discuss.
Okay.
But I think that was really huge and I think everyone knows it, right? That Kittanning does not do any PR, doesn't really have a group going out there promoting it.
Yeah.
I think it's, you have 3 commissioners. They don't really say too many positive things about the county, but these places have people out there saying positive things about the county or about their region, right? And going out there just repeatedly, right, with a narrative and with the story.
Yeah.
And we need to, all we have to do is develop our story, and then you can tweak the story, whether it's going to be a food-focused thing or if it's going to be a history-focused thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's huge opportunity for someone like DKI to actually focus on this, and it would bring tremendous value to the businesses in town.
Yeah. So if we had someone to help write copy, obviously I'd make videos on that stuff all day long. I mean, those are such good things, and then they're searchable too.
Yeah.
So if you get them on a Facebook platform, on a YouTube platform, on a website, and then all those things are when you search Kittanning, that's all that stuff is discoverable.
Sure. Yeah, and we live in such a connected world, right?
Yeah.
I've always said we need to do things to get Instagram more photos in Kittanning, right? That people put on Instagram, because that's the really the gateway to the internet, and people see that and it attracts people.
Well, let's finish up the towns.
All right,
and
so
then
here we go.
We'll get in. We'll go to
Fulton, Missouri. It's the only town on the list that I've come across so far that actually has they noticed it has a college, but this college, Winston Churchill, has spoke out, and a lot of famous people have spoke out at, and they kind of capitalize on this college and the speakers that come into this college.
Okay.
But they, again, very clean, nice town, Central Missouri, real Americana feel.
Yeah.
Right? Cambridge, Maryland. It's Eastern Shore, Maryland. Great food. It's known for its great food and revitalized kind of town setting, art galleries as well. Genoa, Nevada, Lake Tahoe town. That's an outdoors town.
Yeah.
Bedford, Virginia. Something happened in Bedford that they lost the most people per capita or something on D-Day.
Oh,
and
wow.
they got the D-Day National Memorial there.
Okay.
So that is a hook, right?
Yeah.
But they have added to this arts, wine. Virginia now is a good place to buy some really good up-and-coming wineries. If you travel through rural Virginia, you'll see a ton of wineries. They're right off the Blue Ridge Mountains. So they've kind of understood, okay, we got one spark here. We have this growing wine business around us. Let's do some arts things. Let's be a hub town for people to come explore the Blue Ridge Parkway and whatnot. Very cool.
Yeah.
Pawhuska, Oklahoma. that's famous. You know why it's famous?
No idea.
Many women watching this might know. It is the Pioneer Woman. You know who the Pioneer Woman is?
Oh, yeah. I see the stuff in Walmart. Yeah.
So she, big food blogger. She was a food blogger, married and my wife would tell the story, right? Married a rancher, right? And they have this huge place, but she has the show. Very, very popular show.
Yeah.
But she opened a mercantile, which is like a huge market. Very similar to our friends, the Gaineses in Waco, right?
Yeah, right.
But just a little bit smaller scale.
Yep.
But, and they've done some nature preserves around the town. They keep it very Oklahoma, undeveloped, right?
Yeah.
It's 3,500 people, but now people are coming from all over because she has such a massive following. We're talking, millions of fans on social media.
Yep, for sure.
So you could say it's niche-y, but it was one person, the right person with the right thing, and now it's put this town on the map.
Yep.
And then there's the final town on this map is called Helen, Georgia. It has 543 people. It's a Bavarian town, like German.
Yeah.
And everything is, they have these German buildings. It's a mountain. There's actually mountains, and this is, I think, northern, Georgia.
Yeah.
And they have the German style homes. They have skiing there in the winter.
Wow.
They have and it's all kind of German themed, German restaurants. If you go to their website, they have a great website, right? For the 543 people, they obviously paid somebody to come in and build this great website. It is what I would consider a complete niche town.
Yeah.
But it is something that is unique. And, I thought one of the things we could pose is, does Kittanning need a niche? Would a niche help?
Yeah.
I think we have so many great things, maybe we don't need a niche.
Right.
But in some of these cases, maybe one thing actually helps build some of the other things up because it is a hook to bring people into town.
Yeah. I'm looking at this, what the kind of process that's coming to mind is almost like applying for a grant. When you apply for grants and there's a bunch of different categories and you're trying to score as many points in all these categories and figure out, how can we, get high enough on the list. And some of the things that we've talked about would be niches, the arts, outdoors seems to keep cropping up over and over again.
Yeah. Food
crops up over and over again. We could take those categories and tell a pretty good story about everything except really the niche side of it. So that is an interesting question.
So there's three things that so far we've discovered. Arts is massive.
Huge, yeah.
Outdoors is huge. And food, I think everyone accepts that you should have food. And then, of course, we also talked about all these towns have a local aspect. They invest in local.
Yeah.
Right? And we need to do a better job of that here, 100%.
Yeah.
Right? And then some of these towns have a fifth pillar, which is they have some form of niche that they built, right? I don't know if Kittanning needs a niche. Now, I talked about a long time ago, we should put a big art installation on the trail, like a big starting point, and make this kind of like a destination where you start your journey, right? Instead of like a lot of these places are destinations, right?
Yeah.
Or do some form of art thing, right? I think people have talked about doing some type of Native American museum in town. There's different things or different themes we could do something on.
Right.
A big statue, a big something, right? That would bring people in, something unique, right? Could we combine something with the river? I talked about putting one of those European style boat lifts replaced because the lock's eventually going to die.
Right.
What if we had a really fancy, like they have in Scotland, European boat lift? I don't know, something that is unique.
Yeah.
And maybe it's art, right? Maybe it's some giant, 300-foot art statue in Kittanning. Right?
Yeah.
But whatever it is, I don't know. I mean, I'm not by any means an expert on niching or niches or what our niche could even be. I think there's a few things it could be, but I'd love to hear what other people would say. So I think that is a phenomenal question for the audience.
Yeah.
Does Kittanning need a niche? What would it be?
Yeah.
Cleveland has gone around, I don't know if you know this, has put these Cleveland in signs.
Okay.
In various strategic locations of the city,
Mm-hmm.
where you can see downtown or have a good view. So, and people who go to Cleveland have to now go get their picture in front of the Cleveland signs.
Right.
We talked about Austin, Texas, having the Austin murals. There's 11 or 12 of them.
Right.
They're really well visited throughout the town. So maybe there's even things like that we could put strategically through town.
Yeah.
I don't know, but or maybe there's some historic angle we could take with the river or whatnot, that we could make a neat niche, so to speak.
Certainly something with Native American history, French and Indian War. I think about things like even like a Rust Belt history museum or something like that kind of showcase the big manufacturing that was in this whole region, and then just kind of make Kittanning the poster child for, hey, this is what all these little Rust Belt towns were, and this is where we're going in the future, that kind of thing. But,
sure.
I don't know, just an interesting question. So yeah, that'll be our question for the day. We're right at 30 minutes, man. That was our goal.
Did anything else pop up? And I think obviously the big call out from this list was the PR aspect of it, and that these towns have groups that are doing PR, both internally helping the businesses in town and then externally promoting it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we desperately need.
So I think we have two things on our list then. Number one, are you interested in helping promote the town? We need like 50 Mike and Andrews, right?
Right. Or 3 or 4. Even we'll set it with that.
That could work together. Not just all be on our own island, but coming together and just having conversations like this, and then creating actionable plans. And then number 2, the question would be, what's our niche? What's our theme as a city? Yeah. And how can we utilize that to our advantage to get on the national scene?
Yeah. And maybe some people say, hey, I don't think we need a niche. I think we have enough other things.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be really interesting to see what people...
Yeah, maybe someone out there has the right idea, and it's like, hey, that totally makes sense, and we could go for it. So, love it.
Awesome.
All right. Anything else you want to say today?
No, we'll be back with another list. I mean, I think this is really laying the groundwork for understanding what we need to do.
Yeah.
And as I said in the first story, a lot of this stuff a lot of these towns didn't wait around for this to happen through the government.
Right.
Most of this action and this revitalization of these towns happened because they had sound government, but they had businesses and individuals taking the initiative to get this stuff done.
I think that's a really good point to make, because I've heard for too long that people saying, well, we need to get that one big manufacturer, or we really need to have that one big business that would come downtown, or we really need to hit that one big grant. And I'm just saying, there's enough here already to start.
Sure.
We can't wait, because if we wait another 20 years, we're dead.
No list so far, I mean, other than maybe you could say Lamar's with the Blue Money, has talked anything about a company or a job situation. And we know that's always going to be a struggle, I think, in Kittanning and Armstrong County. But there's things these towns have done that have become attractive to people to move there and visit.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there were some interesting comments last time from the arts question as well. So maybe next time we'll take all of your responses and we'll pick some of those, and maybe we'll talk about those next time as we enter into our next list. And I think that's it for today, you guys. We'll see you next week. These will keep coming out every Friday as long as we can continue to meet and make some time in our busy schedules. But I think we have it figured out, a common time for us. And so you can expect every Friday, 6:15 a.m., you'll have a new episode of the Kittanning Podcast, figuring out how we're going to become the greatest city in the world. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Andrew.
Talk to you soon.
Yep.
See you then.